Welcome to Marketplace Tech Bytes, our weekly review of the biggest stories making headlines across the industry. I'm Lily Jamali. This week on the show, Apple finally has its AI moment. Uber loses a challenge to the gig worker law in California, and X, aka Twitter, makes user likes private. And joining me to discuss all of that this week is Joanna Stern. She's the senior personal tech columnist at the Wall Street Journal, fresh off the plane from Cupertino and safely back in New York. Welcome to you, Joanna.
Hey, Lily, how are you?
I'm doing well. How was it out there?
It was lovely. Lovely time of year to be in Cupertino. Not too hot. Got a couple bug bites, weirdly, but other than that, beautiful time in Cupertino.
Yeah, well, all part of the job. Well, so glad to have you on this week to discuss, among other things, Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference. We're going to start, as we always do, with our Byte of the Week, a number that gives us a little bit of insight into the week that was in tech. Joanna, what do you have for us?
I have 60, and that is the amount of times Apple said Apple Intelligence during its around 2-hour keynote.
Yes, which you dutifully sat through with bug bites and all. AI, of course, was the big theme at the annual conference, which took place this week. And you were calling it Apple's AI in everything strategy, this new era with AI features across the Apple ecosystem. Walk us through some of the highlights.
Yeah, I think, it's actually a pretty layered and complicated announcement because Apple was making this big point about how we've got these AI tools now, but they don't combine with our personal information. And so their big strategy is really to make this a more personal chatbot, that chatbot and that assistant being the one and only Siri. And so they mapped out a lot of ways that they're going to bring generative AI to Siri and across their platforms. They're going to have this in iOS 18, they're going to have an iPad OS 18, and then Mac OS Sequoia. And this is all going to come in some beta versions this summer and then in the fall to everybody. And I think the thing that people need to take away from this is Apple the company to trust in AI? They made a lot to do in the presentation around privacy and security, how they've designed their AI systems to prioritize those things either by running on your device, not having to go to the cloud, or going to a cloud service that's theirs, their private cloud, that they've worked to really protect your private information. And so they made a big sell on this, obviously trying to kind of preempt those competitors, the ones like Google, the ones like Microsoft, even OpenAI, which they partnered with, and we should talk about.
Yes, we should.
That we should trust them.
We should. And of course, to your point, Siri is palling up with ChatGPT, which is made by OpenAI. And I wonder how everything you just said squares with the fact that these companies have very different approaches when it comes to messaging to consumers about privacy. I think it's fair to say. What's your read on how consumers are responding on that particular announcement that they're going to be joining forces there? I see a lot of chatter, questions about can people opt out of the ChatGPT integration on some Apple features?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest user being Elon Musk, who quickly was like, this is horrible. I'm going to ban all of these devices if this is what Apple's doing, putting OpenAI or ChatGPT at the OS level. And that's really not what's happening. And that's what I was sort of trying to walk through before. This is very layered and complicated. And so Apple's going to try usually to answer your device, your AI questions, either on the device using its chips and running its own local models, or it's going to try to go to its own Apple models. But if it can, and you want a more complex answer, you ask a more complex prompt, Siri's going to prompt you to say, can I go ask ChatGPT this question? And so every user is going to be probably pretty frequently asked, can I use ChatGPT? And you have that control. You're also going to be able to, and they're saying this is going to come in future update, log into your ChatGPT Plus account if you do have it, and you'll have more flexibility there. But if you're, you just use iOS, you start using it, this is going to prompt you to say, do you want to use ChatGPT?
Yeah. Well, in your column, you posed the question that so many of us were thinking about going into this event. And that is, are these AI tools, because we knew they were coming from Apple before this actually was announced, that these tools, are they going to actually be useful, or is this more about showing that Apple is in fact catching up on AI? They haven't exactly been on the cutting edge here. which is a little unusual for them.
Yeah, and I think like when you go through the presentation carefully, and I did, there are some instances of both. There are instances where Apple is absolutely playing catch up, and they're getting features like the cleanup tool, which is basically the version of Google's Magic Eraser, where you can take something out of the background of a photo, right, and it will generate a new background in that spot. These are features that Google has had. When you look at transcription, you're going to have great voice transcription now in your Notes app, or it might even transcribe your phone call. These are features that Google and Samsung have already had. So there's a lot of that, but there is also, as I've been talking about, this distinction around privacy and security, and them trying to really create a system that isn't really dissimilar of what you've seen from competitors, where they are saying that your info is going to be more private. And so I think Apple really is thinking of that as their distinguishing factor in this race.
And finally, on this, I think we should end on a slightly lighter note. Can we pull up the image of Joanna's tweet from the conference? This is the great calculator image. They said it couldn't be done. The calculator on the iPad, Joanna, I'm imagining chuckles in the audience when this was unveiled.
I mean, there was legitimate cheers in the audience. And this was, I think, maybe the moments. I mean, look, in the decade plus history of the iPad, there has not been a calculator on the iPad. It's not been an app. You've had to download a third-party app that's a calculator. I mean, that's like, people were like, that are not in the industry are like, seriously? Right? But those of us in the industry, we've been asking for such innovation. We've been asking for years. And so Apple finally gave it to us. And the thing is that it isn't just a basic calculator app. It was actually pretty cool. You can use the Apple Pencil and this math notes feature, where you just draw out the equations and it's going to solve it for you. So a homework dream. I mean, kids are going to love this thing.
Sometimes it's the little things. Anyway,
Totally.
So happy you were there, and thanks for sharing all the great insights with us. Now to the courts here in California, where Uber has lost a challenge to AB 5. This was a law passed by the state legislature in 2020 to make gig companies treat workers as employees rather than independent contractors, which is, of course, cheaper for the companies. An appeals court affirming a ruling that said Uber failed to show AB 5 unfairly singled out app-based transportation companies while exempting other industries. Joanna, this has been an ongoing legal and political saga here in California, and I wonder, outside of California, what's your sense of how much attention this is getting?
That brings me back to around 4 years ago, when this was originally in so much of the attention of not only the media, but also gig workers. And there was, I mean, lots, I remember protests, and I know that was a lot that happened in California, but it really started to pick up in other states. And so I don't think this is the end of this. I think this is just, as we've seen, gig workers have felt this is unfair. Many of their states or state legislators have tried to fight this. And so I think we'll continue to see this, California, again, just being another of the latest examples.
Yeah. And if you're Uber or Lyft or any of these companies that depend on gig workers, you don't, for example, have to pay a minimum wage, overtime, expense reimbursements, if there's no law like AB 5 on the books. A lawyer for Uber said in a statement this week that with AB 5, the legislature unfairly targeted their clients, meaning Uber, out of animus rather than reason. Californians will also remember voting on Prop 22, which took this issue to citizens who approved, actually, letting the companies keep treating workers as independent contractors, effectively exempting the companies from AB 5. The gig industry, by the way, spent north of $200 million on that campaign, it bears mentioning. Meanwhile, there's been this game of chicken playing out in Minnesota. The city of Minneapolis passed an ordinance increasing pay for Uber and Lyft drivers there. The ride-hailing companies threatened to leave, not just the city, but actually the entire state. And a few weeks ago, the state passed a measure that enacted pay minimums, but those minimums are going to be lower than what the city of Minneapolis had approved. So the companies are now saying they will not leave the state after all. Joanna, we're now more than a decade into the gig economy era, if you want to call it that. Are you surprised to be that we're still seeing these legal battles playing out? It's not just in legislatures, it's in the courts. Here in California, voters were asked to weigh in. It's become such a patchwork across states and even within states.
I guess I'm not surprised. I think this has so much then been, as you mentioned, coming from the lobbying, the lobbying of the companies, and also like just this. I think this feeling maybe a decade ago that maybe this wasn't going to stick, this entire gig economy, and yet we've seen over the last decade how many areas has this gone into, from transportation to food delivery. I mean, this has just become the way of our world. And so I'm not surprised. I think one thing that has been positive when these things happen is there is greater awareness as consumers and users about the struggles for some of these workers. And that plays into the tipping economy, right? And we had this happen, I believe it was around DoorDash a few years ago, with that understanding of how important the tipping is, the service fees, all of that economics behind this all. But I think consumers need to be reminded. And so as much as like, this seems to be a hassle that this keeps coming back up, or at least, just it keeps every few years coming back up. That reminder for consumers is important.
Yeah, it's not going away. The gig companies have long argued, though, that workers want this flexibility. They say consumers are using these services. And now we wait here in California, where the highest court is due to weigh in on the future of Prop 22, which I mentioned. All right, well, on to our third and final story. Elon Musk's X, the app once known as Twitter, is making user likes private. I'm seeing this in my feed this week. It is presented as a privacy measure. Musk saying that it's important to allow people to like posts without getting attacked for doing so. As an avid and longtime user of the app yourself, how does this strike you?
I don't know. I mean, it does in some ways strike me as anti what Elon Musk has stood for, which is like, we should all have freedom of speech and we should all put our opinions out there without repercussion. And now here we are sort of hiding our speech behind a hidden like. But of course, this will enable and maybe will lead to more people liking things because, hey, your name won't be attached to it. But it to me, it was a little bit like uncharacteristic of some of the changes he's made.
Are you saying there are contradictions in his view on free speech? Is that what? Am I hearing
just
this
a
right?
little? I mean, but like and I know this was it was part of a paid feature. Just like I don't know. Yeah, I guess I don't totally look. I'm not going to be super upset that my likes are not public anymore, but there are other changes he's made that I've been certainly more peeved about.
Definitely. Well, as you say, this was a feature for premium paying users, but now is the default for all of us going forward. I got to say, I don't like the way this was rolled out. It felt a little imposed on me, a longtime user here. But that's kind of been the case with a lot of things that Elon Musk has been doing as he tinkers away on the app. All right. Well, Joanna's feed is always fun to read, especially on a week like this when there is so much personal tech in the news. I come for the insight. I stay for the snark. Joanna Stern of the Wall Street Journal, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I will like your post and you won't even know it.
That's right. Well, thanks to all of you for watching Marketplace Tech Bytes Week in Review. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to us. We are at Marketplace APM on YouTube. Daniel Shin produced this week's episode, and I'm Lily Jamali. This is APM.